Contrary to popular belief, the Hessians were not mercenaries. Now, of course, we've all heard of the Hessians and the Jaegers, of course, Germanic soldiers who were fighting for the British crown in the American War of Independence. They received their name, at least the Hessians did, they received their name from the province of Hesse-Cassel in Germany, which was just one of many different provinces which sent soldiers over to fight for the British. Now, a lot of times we are told in schools and at reenactments and just in general, people discuss it in this way, that the Hessians were mercenary soldiers, that they were German mercenaries fighting for the British. And that isn't strictly speaking true, because what is a mercenary? A mercenary is a soldier of fortune, a soldier who decides that he is going to hire out his services to, well, the highest bidder and fight for them. He is a volunteer of some sort. A mercenary hires himself out. But if a mercenary is a soldier who volunteers personally to go to a foreign land and fight for them for his own wealth, his own betterment, well, a Hessian wasn't so much a volunteer, so much as they were voluntold. You see, they were regular soldiers for the princes of their various Germanic states, and when King George III wanted to hire out soldiers to fill his ranks in the Americas, he didn't approach individual mercenary companies or even individual armies and say, I want to hire you to come and fight for me and I will pay you. No, he went to individual princes and leaders in these Germanic states and he says, I want to hire your army and I will pay you, my friend, for the privilege. These weren't mercenary bands that were sent over, they were rented armies. You see, it was a common practice at the time for various European leaders, be they small princeling states or very large empires, to rent out their soldiers to another power for whatever war they may having to be faced. Because you see, while every country has to maintain a standing army, because of course every other power around you, especially if you're a small Germanic state, every other Germanic state has a standing army, so you can't not have one because that would leave you open. And of course there's also the possibility of internal threats and internal risks to the prince's power base. So he has to maintain an army to prevent insurrection effectively. So you have to keep this army in case a threat arises from any number of a variety of cases. But of course, armies are also very expensive to maintain, especially if you're trying to be a thoroughly modern Germanic prince and entertain a proper court and keep all your estates intact and all that sort of thing. It's a very expensive business to be a Germanic prince. So you have this army laying around doing nothing. If it's not protecting you from anything at the time, well, you may as well earn something from them. And that's where, that's where this system came about from. You can rent out your army to the highest bidder to fight for whatever cause they want to do, and at the very end of the day, they come home back to you. Indeed, that's why many of Germans actually defected in the Americas, because they didn't want to return back to Germany. But I think that's another topic. That's a topic for another day. It was a very common system that you rent out your army. And indeed, actually, as I recall, if the soldier happened to die while on foreign service, you earned a slightly higher bounty for them. And so indeed, the German soldiers were often more valuable to their princes dead than alive, although of course, in fairness, you would have to train another soldier, but yeah, it may be worth it for the quick cash influx. Indeed, this sort of system wasn't limited only to the Germanic states. The Russians as well were approached, were asked by the British, can we hire some of your soldiers to fight the war in America? There could well have been Russians fighting for the British in the United States, what would become the United States, of course, alongside the Germans and, of course, the British and colonial allies. But unfortunately for the British, the Russians were actually having a bit of domestic troubles all their own at the time, and so they weren't willing to hire out their armies for foreign service, no matter how valuable such a thing may have been. And so the British were forced to go instead to the Germans for their help in the matter. So indeed, the German Hessians weren't in the Americas for their own wealth, for their own personal gain. They were told by their bosses, by their princes, by their Well, perhaps there are less savory terms to refer to them in this sort of capacity, but they were told by the people above them, you're going to go and fight in America, so I can get a better paycheck today. It's a rather grim system, but again, that's one of the reasons why a lot of those fellows defected, but I think that that'll be the next video. In fact, I'm already standing up here, I'll record that one now. That'll be our next video. Why on earth did so many Hessians defect during the American War of Independence? Until the next time, my dear viewer, I am and I shall remain your most humble and obedient of servants.